You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you on the other side of the holiday, the other side of a trip to Memphis, the other side of whatever was included in everybody's weekend. So it's great to be back with you and great to be back with our Locked On Texas Tech family out there. And we've got some things to review as we begin this week, wrap up a year, wrap up a season, look ahead to a brand new offseason. There's a whole lot going on. So we're just going to try to sort it all out. So looking forward to some conversation with you over the next couple of days before the New Year's holiday. We got a Big 12 hoops opener to get to on an upcoming episode, but for now, we'll be all football as we look back to not only what went down in Memphis, but sort of a post-mortem, post-op on the season at large, Chris, is the Red Raiders do fall short of win number 9, but it's kind of a bizarre experience as you look to the Liberty Bowl. And, I want to tell myself both of these teams are sort of shells of what they looked like during the regular season. It is just the Liberty Bowl after all, but I'll be damned, I couldn't keep myself from really caring about getting a win and really being disappointed when you were unable to do so. So a whole lot of feelings to process. Credit to Arkansas for making the big plays they needed to make to get it done. Credit to Tech for showing some fight and responding from a big hole early on. But unfortunately, you come up short, and I know there had to be a lot of frustration for the program leaving Memphis.
Yeah, and I'm standing on the sideline before the game, and I'm just looking around at all these guys in these white Adidas tracksuits, and I'm like, well, there's a lot of good football over here. Not suiting up tonight, and obviously Arkansas had their own issues too, and it's just the way it goes. But you get into those games, and it was a pretty crowd, pretty. Juiced up crowd, I guess I would say. And it wasn't totally full, but I mean, there were, I'm going to guess 35, 40,000 people there in a stadium that was being renovated. And I thought you had plenty of people there. Arkansas certainly did. It's just it's a pretty quick drive from Fayetteville or Little Rock or wherever they're coming from. And you get into those games and you're right. You want to win. And I guess I felt like I was hoping it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but I think that the combination of – we can get into all the players that were missing and everything, but I think the combination of you not having either play caller or your starting quarterback, and they have their play callers and full staff and their starting quarterback, the difference, and that along with their reserves are better than yours right now. Yeah. I think that's that they have more quality depth than you do. It appeared, and their quarterback just played really, really good, and you didn't really have an answer. And the same theme popped up on you. Just explosive plays given up on defense. Just way too many big plays. Just made it pretty easy for Arkansas. I mean, there was one point in the game where I think Talon Green had 10 completions for well over 300 yards. Math.
I mean, he finished with 341. I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
Yeah, I mean, and so these were haymakers and blown coverages, missed tackles. Their guys making a play, whatever it was. It just, and that's got to stop. That's got to be something that you get fixed, and that's why you've attacked what you did in the portal. But it was fun, but it just was a frustrating night too. And I think it's not. We've been on the right side of those for about 3 years, and it sucks to lose them because you just feel this kind of, I don't know. It's not a very satisfying way to end a year, and seeing a bunch of guys like play their last game and just not being able to end it the right way. But that's the bowl game. That's the postseason. That's somebody's gonna win, somebody's gonna lose, and unfortunately, that was you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just we all know the context. We know the personnel that's there, the personnel that's not there, the coaches that aren't there, whatever it might be. and you understand that going into the game. But when the first starts flying, it doesn't matter. I don't care who's out there in uniform or not. You want to have more points than those other guys. So it was disappointing, obviously, to not have that. I wonder if maybe from your vantage, and this is probably kind of an impossible question to answer, so just your opinion is fine. But which side of the ball do you think was more impacted by maybe not having their coordinator there? Because as I said, it was a kind of a shell of what you were in the regular season, but there were a few things that were exactly what you were in the regular season. Big play prone. That's what you were in the regular season defensively. That's what you were again on Friday night. But did one stick out to you over the other as far as really missing a coordinator? Do you think it was sort of similar on both sides, or what did you make of that?
Well, I think you were where you were hurt the most is on offense. Obviously, you don't have your play caller, you don't have your quarterback, your best receiver, and your starting running back, which is these guys with kind of the identity of your team. And I think too, when you pair up that's where Arkansas had the most people playing. They lost a little bit on defense, but not. They had, I think, 7 or 8 starters playing in that game, and Sam Pittman even had said before the game, I feel pretty good about our defense coming to this one. Not real sure about the offense. And so you kind of their strength, maybe your weakness, at least on paper, and that was not because you weren't really built. Once you got down 21-3, you weren't really built to get into a shootout with what you were out there with, I didn't think. And I thought they did a really good job on Will Hammond, and Will Hammond looked like a freshman at times. I thought he played well at times, but then there was other times where he underthrew some deep balls and couldn't get loose on some runs that, I think we thought it may open things up and some things like that. But that's where, I think the play calling standpoint, I don't know how different it would have been with Kitley calling it or what game plan you would have come in with, but you get behind and you're still trying to run it, and it just, I don't know, it just looked a bit disjointed, and I factor all those reasons as to why, but that's where it kind of showed up to me, especially when you got down early, because defensively you were missing Lux and Ledette. And obviously Harvey Dyson, and then you have a whole bunch of guys that have been out for a while. I mean, I'm sitting over there, and I'm just, you're because everybody goes to the bowl game, but it's like a Datoray's over there next to Bryce Ramirez, and Dylan Spencer's next to Duda Banks, and there's just a whole bunch of guys that if you had your pieces, but again, Arkansas missing quite a few things as well. They're backups were better than you. And it's just a different, I hate to say it, I hate it, but it's the truth.
First, today's episode brought to you by Rocket Money. And if you're lost in the subscription whirlwind, listen up. If you're like me, you've had a few subscriptions you didn't even realize you were still paying on. And that's where Rocket Money comes in, making it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and even helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit in 2025. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, the subscription tracker is a must-have. Cancel services you're not using anymore and save a ton. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Just go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
And it's just a different, I hate to say it, I hate it, but it's the truth. I get down there, and anytime you go against a typical SEC team, they just look different. It's a bit bigger and faster, and I think you're trying to address that in the portal, and you look young and small far too often, and I think that showed up as well.
I thought maybe you just meant uglier, which is probably true as well, but you mean physical.
Yes.
We're trying to get handsome and big and fast all at the same time. I really felt like whatever some fans might have been anticipating, and I may have been in that camp as far as the offseason quarterback conversation was concerned. Well, that was doused. I think that was doused. And I don't mean that as a slight to Hammond at all, but we got a full picture, a full 4 quarters of what he looked like as a freshman QB. And he's not going to be a freshman QB anymore. So I don't know. Maybe there still is some competition to play out. But there are plenty of times where he does some things physically that I'm like, ooh, I like that. Quick release. The arm's got some firepower with it. There's no doubt about that. He still didn't seem like, timid or that the moment was too big for him necessarily. But like you already said, there were some moments where definitely the green behind the ears was kind of showing, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a difference too in just getting thrown in there on a spur of the moment versus TCU when you're just kind of slinging it and just like you don't have time to do anything other than just like let's just go. And and now you have to imagine Arkansas had multiple weeks to get ready for Will Hammond, and they probably watched every snap of his this year 10 to 20 times, just seeing what maybe high school film, all the stuff. And it's different when and for Will too, he's got time to think about it and to be nervous, but to plan and to, all the stuff, the good and the bad. But Arkansas also has that same amount of time. And I just thought Will's still going to be this really, really good quarterback here, but he looked like a freshman in his first start. And that's just part of it. I think that the one positive that, he may take away from it is that was very much a learning experience for him. I'm glad he got that start. I think, you kind of tap the brakes a little bit because I was hopeful, like you were, that we would have this unbelievable performance. And it's like, okay, look out. But that's not what we got. And he threw it to them a couple times, and he just, and again, the surprising thing was the underthrown on some of the deep balls. And in his receivers, there was some drops, things like that. But you're still not quite fast enough. You're still not explosive enough. Arkansas was compared to you, and it just. But I'm with you. I'm like, well, I guess it won't be this massive 8 or 9 months of what do we got?
Right.
What are we gonna? Yeah, because to Barron's credit, he's pretty good. And I know people want the next best thing, but I'll maintain that you're going to need both of them, folks. You just are. And Barron was there. I will tell you that he told me that before the game, and when we reported this on the broadcast, he's like, he's got his arm in that sling, and he was listening to play calls and trying to coach up Will and just trying to be a mentor and a leader and all those things. And he's like, I knew I was at a big time surgeon's office in LA, the guy that did his surgery. I think it's the same guy that did Carson Beck's surgery at Georgia recently too. But he's like, Sandra Bullock's over there doing rehab, and like he's like, I saw some big time people up there. I was like, I bet you did.
Distracting.
Yeah, well, that's right. So anyway, but he'll be back, and I think better for this, and it'll be a few months. But you're going to need both of these guys. But I was hopeful that Will would really have a monster game, and I thought you kind of needed that. He needed to play really, really well, and that's just not what you got. But it wasn't all him. I mean, different play caller.
No, I don't even feel like he really. I wouldn't say he played really, really bad. It was just somewhere kind of in between. There were some drops. There were some throws he didn't make. There was Caleb Douglas bailing him out, going Randy Moss mode at one point in time with an amazing catch that would have been another pick. But we'll wait till the spring to overreact to quarterback conversation. All right. So we'll just have a break here between now and the spring, and then we'll get back to overreacting about the quarterback convo. But speaking of Douglas, let's speak of Jacoby Williams. Let's speak of some of these other guys that we did see really make an impact. And those two guys are in different categories, obviously, as far as their time within the college game so far. But Douglas had a great individual day. I really love seeing his progress throughout the season. Got better and better and better. There was that moment in the year, that span where Kelly was a little dinged up and wasn't quite what he had been for a few weeks. Seemed like Douglas really stepped in, and man, I'm really excited about the future for him in red and black. And I think personally, I don't know where everybody else was, but personally, I got to say he exceeded my expectations for what he would be this year as a pass catcher, and he finished on a high note individually, no doubt.
Yeah, he had one drop early in the game that was costly, but other than that, it was a really good game. And he was kind of he needed to be a big-time playmaker for you in that game, and he was much of the night. And I think it'll be fun to see him, opposite of Reggie Virgil next year, because I think what you'll do is you'll move Koyakin in the slot, and you'll have two really long, fast, athletic receivers on the outside. But, Caleb has progressed, and he's a playmaker, and he's a deep threat. I just think if he'll be a little bit more consistent game in and game out, or game to game, I should say, I think that's the next step for him. But I'm glad he's on my team.
Yes.
You're right, because that one ball it was picked, and he intercepted the interception is basically what happened. He's somebody that's got a lot to his game, and I think there's more that he can give you and more he can progress from. But he's an NFL guy, in my opinion. And I think that you hope that you've signed another one in Reggie Virgil out of Miami of Ohio. That's what you hope to have opposite of each other on the outside next year. So it's Jacoby Williams, to me, we probably are not surprised by this, but that was really fun to watch him kind of have a moment because he was, first of all, you see the speed. But I think what people need to understand about this kid is, man, the toughness. Because there was some licks that he took, and he got up saying, give me more. Like, give me. One time I thought he got hit late. He left some guy's jockstrap in the middle of the field, and he just juked him. And that's some juice that you've been missing. He's small, and he looked small against Arkansas. But I think that there's, when you're trying to run between the tackles, not easy to do, but when he gets that, he can also get lost back in traffic back there too. But when he gets out in the open field, there's not going to be many folks that catch him. He's one of the fastest guys on the team. And I think that we talked about this on the broadcast too, that Coach McGuire, he just texted me randomly, me and the other radio guys, the day before the game. Here was our GPS numbers from practice today, and I think Jacoby was like over 21 miles an hour. And you saw when on that one touchdown run, he wasn't going to get caught. And Kelby Valson was not too far behind him and kind of right next to him, and they also had some catches for the young receiver. So fun to see.
Yeah, Valson stood out to me as well. Jacoby Williams, diminutive in stature, I suppose, but I don't know if he knows that, because the dude is not afraid of the physical aspect of his position or this game. I go back to a couple of games in the regular season I mentioned on this show where, his blocking, I'm like, who's the dude that just went and slobber knocked somebody out there? And I'm like, oh, that's the freshman running back that's this tall and weighs this much. Okay, I like that, but I think we're going to be liking a lot for the future of what Jacoby Williams is going to bring to the table. I'd be remiss, we're talking about some of these young guys, if I didn't flip to the other side. And I know defensively there were a lot of headaches for you out there, but I don't remember a week, including the bowl game, a game including the bowl game, where when he's on the field, John Curry was not flashing to me. And I think he was your second or third leading tackler against Arkansas. And I'm really anxious to see what his role is going to be next year. We know that Jacob Rodriguez will be your anchor. Ben Roberts, who had a great freshman campaign, I do not feel like really followed that up from a sophomore standpoint, certainly not counting him out yet. But I think it's gotten a little bit more interesting maybe between a Roberts and a Curry, or just that depth beyond Jacob Rodriguez in general, because to me, Curry was noticeable again against Arkansas.
Yeah, he was. He's just kind of starting to figure it out. Now, they're all going to have to go through, learning a new scheme with a new coordinator, and I don't know how they'll be employed in said scheme. Don't know exactly what that will look like, but there's a reason why that's the one position you didn't address in the portal. It's the only position on your team, other than, I guess, punter, that you didn't tweak it or add to it, or you didn't lose anybody. They're all back. Everybody was playing in this game other than Justin Horn. Dingle played a little bit, and I think they use him in a variety of ways. But I thought John, he's just a lot of IQ there and a lot of athleticism. And again, you're going to need all these guys, and they'll all probably play at some level. Jacob's the best one right now. He's the most polished, and he's still got some upside too, because he just hadn't played. Sure. We've talked about a ton of linebacker yet in his career, so he's still, trending up. But John is is somebody that he'll get plenty of run in the spring and next year and all that, and we'll just kind of see what Sheil Wood. First of all, we'll see who's coaching those guys because I guess Sheil Wood will. You may, move Bookbinder around. You may add to your staff. We still have to figure all that out. But that's there's a couple other guys too I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
I thought for as many issues as you had up front, I thought Jaden Cofield continues to make some plays here and there. I think he's got some upside. I think Braylon Rigsby is undersized. He got sick, I think, back in early part of the season or even the summer. And I think he was kind of like, okay, is he an edge? Is he an interior guy? And I think he's an undersized interior guy right now. But with a full off season, when maybe they can put some weight on him, I think he's got some upside and things like that. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned Cofield and Rigsby. But then I thought the guy to me that maybe flashed the most on defense, because you had plenty of issues, as you said. But I thought Brendan Jordan was also particularly fun to watch. He competed. I think he's starting to figure it out on those GPS numbers. He was the fastest. And that's the reason that we brought it up on the broadcast, because I think he clocked like 22 miles an hour the day before the game in practice. But one of those early touchdown, I guess he made a tackle that saved a touchdown and down the guy at the 5. I mean, he tracks this guy down from like 30 yards back and tackled him at the 5. But he sucked him up. And then there was a couple other plays that Brendan Jordan made, and it is just noticeable. You have your issues at corner and all that, but I think Brendan Jordan is one of those DBs that's got some versatility to him that I think he's starting to figure it out. He's going to find a home somewhere as nickel, as a safety, as a hybrid or something that I think he can do a lot of things for you. But I just like his speed because it was on display on Friday night.
I mean, he's one of that group of young defensive backs this year that, for a moment you're like, oh, I like that. Another moment comes and you're like, oh, we got to grow up. And then you're like, oh, I like that again. Oh, man, we really got to grow up fast. And so you're hoping that some of these lumps you've had to take this year, last year, playing some of these guys early on, the number of snaps that you had are gonna really pay off for you. But he's definitely on the short list of those that I like.
And I will tell you, unfortunately, I think I don't know. I just, anytime I see a player talking to doctors and then they end up talking to family members and seeing family members react the way that Chapman Lewis's did, I'm afraid that he had something pretty bad go wrong with one of his knees. And I hope that's not the case, but that concerns me a bit as he left the game and didn't return. And, I'm not a body language expert or anything like that, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see, there was some concern there for Chapman Lewis. So I don't know.
And he's definitely in that group of guys that I like this year that I thought were coming on at various points. And so something to pay attention to as we move forward. Also something else to pay attention to as we move forward, Chris. This has been quite the experience, not just for Texas Tech, but across the college football landscape whenever it comes to roster management during bowl season, whether it's opt-outs or guys who are in the portal yet still wearing your uniform in a bowl game. Some guys already committed to another team and still playing for your team in a bowl game. Cam Ward at Miami. Hey, I'm going to go out here and set a record. Hey, we're in a 1-point battle. I'm good on the second half of that. I mean, there's just bizarre stuff playing out. The Heisman Trophy winner is playing in the Alamo Bowl for some reason. Somebody you project as a first-round pick is playing in the Alamo Bowl. It's all over the map as far as like approaches to this. But the opt-out aspect of it, I've asked you about this a little bit before. We've kind of talked about this new era you're going into, and we don't have all the answers yet on what this is going to look like. So there is speculation, but are we going to get away from this like next year? Are we watching the era of the opt-out come to a close because of some of the revenue sharing agreements and NIL contracts that will now be in place? Or do you think there's still going to be maybe a good dose of this kind of thing to come in the future? Because obviously you already ran down the list for Tech. I mean, these are some primary playmakers on both sides that were in sweatpants for you on Friday night.
Yeah, so you had obviously had Braylon Lux and Taj Brooks and Josh Kelly all opt out. I think Caleb Rogers, he elected to play, and I think he'll get drafted. I mean, heck, Caleb Rogers may get drafted higher than anybody on your team. I think Conyers has a chance to get drafted, and he played. Tharp has a chance to get drafted. He played. And you have Jordan Brown and Brady Boyd, Jake Strong, who suited up. Jordan Brown played some, and Jordan Brown's committed to Nevada, and all that. And you mentioned the Cam Ward thing and the Travis Hunter and the Shedeur Sanders. Everybody could look at all these situations. Like, you mean you're letting a guy that's committed to another team play for you, or you're letting a guy opt out of your team, or you're letting – or you're going to play in this game, even though you're going to be a top 5 pick. You could look at all these situations, and somebody out there is going to go, well, this is dumb, or you're dumb for doing this, or hey, coach, you're dumb for allowing it, or whatever. So it's just it's all over the map, and
particularly if you lose the game, Chris. Right? Miami, Colorado, Texas Tech, wrong side of the scoreboard.
Yeah. I don't know if it will totally, because who started this was Christian McCaffrey. He's the one that kind of started this several years ago, and it was like, what? He's not going to play in the game? What do you mean? This is right. I'm trying to remember how many years ago that was, but it's now fairly common, and I guess it's always now it's based on what you're playing for, and how the coach wants to handle it, and how the guy's wired, or is there an insurance policy involved, like there was with the 2 Colorado guys? And like the difference, the Colorado guys, they're protected by insurance policy. They're also guaranteed to get drafted. Taj Brooks, Josh Kelly, they're not guaranteed to get drafted. So their thought has got to be like, do I want to risk it? Like, I could go from potentially being drafted to like guaranteed to be not. I don't. So So to answer your question, I think what is going to start to be talked about is that in some of these contracts that you're going to start seeing, schools sign athletes to, or their players to, is you'll build some things in there to keep that eligibility, or keep that them playing through the full season. Some guys may still go, hey man, I don't know what you're paying me for this game. It's just not worth it to me. I'm not going to do it. I don't know if there's any way you can make somebody do it, but you can, they can cost themselves some money, or you can try to sweeten the pot a little bit. I also think that there's been chatter that eventually, is it this year? Is it coming? Yeah. Is it this year? Not sure. That bowl games just say, we're going to compensate players to play in this thing. We're not going to give them a TV and an Xbox. We're going to, give them a check, to compete, or the winning team gets this, or something along those lines. So that's a good question. Bowls are not going to go away. Bowls will always be in business. There's too many ratings for it. ESPN does well with it. People sit around and watch them. And so I don't know what the right answer is, but I hope that gets evened out or calms down a bit with the revenue sharing, like they think that the portal will kind of calm down a bit too, and you won't see just mass movement everywhere. That'll be a bit calmer with people under contract, and they have to be bought out and all that kind of stuff.
And I'm assuming when you're talking bowl incentive, you mean something other than the ritual sacrifice of a life-size Pop-Tart. You're talking like money. Probably. I just wanted to clarify that. All right, Chris.
Yes.
Glad you made it back to God's country, my man. And we still got a busy week coming up. We've got a holiday, obviously, with New Year's Day at our door. But we got a Big 12 Hoops opener we're going to get to on tomorrow's episode. And also, we've still got portal partying to discuss, I believe. This son of a gun is rolling on. And I also want to ask you some questions about this JUCO rule change or new rule that is going to impact some guys on your roster. So join us for that on tomorrow's episode. Great to be back with you, man. Looking forward to the next conversation. Enjoyed it as always, and we'll see you then.
Yes, keep hope alive, people. On to 2025. We shall go.
And get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Hope you all had a Merry Christmas. We'll get you fired up, spurred on to New Year's Eve. So join us for the next episode right back here on Locked On Texas Tech.